I am going to get some hate mail for this video. All right, folks, we need to talk because after this new data slate, the points update, and all the new Grotmas detachments, I genuinely think that Warhammer 40,000 is headed into the most exciting, most balanced, and the straight up healthiest state that's probably ever freaking been in. And yes, I know I'm posting this thing a day late, but today I'm not actually going to be doing like a data slate review. I'm actually going to be doing a review of the meta and a review of what to expect going forth. And I did watch a lot of the other creators spitting out their reaction videos to the data slates and the MFM and stuff. And I got to be honest with you, I think I got a different take than a lot of them, but that's okay because I'm not overreacting. As a matter of fact, I've considered this quite a bit. And we're going to dive into what this update really did to 40K, which is really put us in a super incredibly healthy state, and it's going to be awesome. So what just happened, guys? We had 3 huge changes that have all dropped at once. We had a new balance status slate, a new MFM, a new Grotmas detachment release. Now, I don't know if there are any more detachments that are going to be released for Grotmas. There could be. There might not be. I'm not sure. But usually when we're hit by 3 changes like this all at the same time, we get chaos. Something slips in. It gets wild. But this time, I gotta be real. I think Games Workshop really landed a clean, measured, and a shockingly healthy update. So let's get right into the Grotmas detachments that are shockingly pretty darned decent, right? Like darn decent. It's very, very, very impressive. So one of the coolest parts of this update is that every single one of these Grotmas detachments was good. At a minimum, they're fun and playable, and at a maximum, they're genuinely competing to be top tier. And this is very, very sick. Right off the rip, the Space Wolves detachment, oh my goodness. Holy crap. Can I tell you? So I've got a client that I've worked with for quite a while who's a Space Wolves player. And he had, well, actually, I got a couple of them. And some of them were starting to explore different detachments to try to figure out just new ways that we can run them. And the second this dropped, I've been getting messages left and right from everyone, and we are so excited to build with this detachment. This thing is cranked. It is so powerful, and I'm really, really happy for all of my intergalactic wolf enjoyers who get to play with this one. The Emperor's Children detachment. I actually got a lot of hate mail on that video because I claimed that it was one of the strongest melee detachments out there, and I'm going to stand by that. Now, a lot of people are trying to tell me, no, you're stupid. You don't know what you're talking about. Coterie of the Conceited is way, way better. And it's like, well, I would allow for Coterie the Conceited to be better, but the concept of trying to say that Coterie is way, way better when you just don't really know anything yet is it's a weak argument in my opinion. Coterie exists, and I'm not claiming that it doesn't, but this new detachment, new AP on demand, oh boy, I might just be running your infractors bare bones without leaders because they're battle lines, so you can run up to 6 of them, and they all charge in, get strength 5, AP2 with full rerolls to wound. There's a lot of really cool stuff that we can do this detachment. It's freaking awesome. The Imperial Guard detachment, freaking amazing. Could you imagine running in with 30 Rough Riders, all rerolling 1s to hit and wound? Ooh, boy, there is so much cool impact in these Grotmas detachments. And then all the other ones were all good. Like the Rage, Rage and whatever, the freaking Blood Angels one. It's good. I don't think it's better than the Liberator Assault Group, but it's definitely good, and I need to play it because it's possible it could compete with Liberator Assault Group because it's just got all the details of a good detachment. Even the new Chaos Space Marines detachment, which everyone is saying is a meme, guys, I can promise you we're going to put this thing through the reps, and we're going to see some spicy stuff with the Night Lords detachment. What was it called? Night Haunts, whatever. It is awesome. So great work on all of the detachments. They are all usable. Some are, of course, a little bit better than others, or at least a little bit obviously better than others. But man, these are all great. So good call. Now, let's talk about some of the real great stuff that just dropped yesterday. We actually went into the balance status slate and the MFM. And this is beautiful because the meta bullies finally got hit. These were the ruling armies of the meta, and they all got checked. Your Adeptus Mechanicus, they got hit pretty hard, but they were not deleted. They're still a very good army. They're still probably going to be contending with the best army, but they lost a significant amount of points efficiency, and they're likely going to have to drop a full unit from their list. That's a healthy nerf that will be bringing their win rates into freaking restraint. Now, I'm not going to sit here and claim that this was 100% enough of a nerf. They might have actually needed slightly more, but it was enough to make the game much more enjoyable playing against them, and it's going to make them much less dominant across the board. So while they might still be right at the top of armies in the game, they're going to be a much less dominating army in the game, and that is basically all that we can ask for, because there's always going to be a best army. And then we look at Eldar. So Eldar's a little bit different than what happened to Admech, because Eldar got hit. They might not have been nuked from orbit, but the changes were dramatic enough that I'm not sure exactly where they land. And you might still be able to see the crater from space, even though it wasn't nuked. It might be slightly too much, but the faction is still going to have multiple good detachments and multiple good builds. They're definitely not going to be top of the meta anymore, and they're still going to be playable. But I would argue that the ways that we're going to see them played is perhaps in this new Harlequins detachment, perhaps in the Wraith detachment, perhaps in the Spirit Seer detachment. But the whole Flagon and 10 getting out of the Wave Serpent, jumping in and jumping back in, getting out, shooting, jumping back in, those days are gone. So thank goodness the most toxic and poisonous interactions for Eldar are gone. I fear that they didn't need the points nerfs in addition to the rules nerfs. I actually think that was probably a little bit too much, and I hopefully my fears are a little bit not necessary, seeing as it's okay for elf players to cry. I'm just kidding. It's not actually okay. I want every army to be healthy and balanced. But there are still going to be ways to play Eldar, but it's not going to look like what it has been, and they're not going to be top of the meta anymore. So that's actually a really, really nice thing, but I do actually fear that one was overdone just a wee bit. Then let's look at Sisters of Battle. Sisters, they're just simply too consistent, and they didn't need to be obliterated, but they just have a little bit too much efficiency. The fact that Sacrosanct units were 140 points is honestly ludicrous. They just need to lose a little bit of efficiency, and that's exactly what happened. They lost overall, like your average army might have lost 50 points, and because of that, it's going to change builds, and I think that's enough to drop them from that 55-56% win rate down to the 53-52% win rate, which is more acceptable. Most lists are going to lose like roughly a unit, but it's not going to be anything that's catastrophic. It's going to require a few pivots, just a little bit of a decrease in efficiency, which is all we needed. So I think that's a brilliant nerf. And then lastly, the one that people are going to hate on me for, Ultramarines and the Victrix Honor Guard. Guys, stop overreacting to absolutely everything. The internet has absolutely lost its mind over Victrix Honor Guard. And yes, the results for the Victrix were good. And yes, they're probably a little bit too efficient for the points, or they were. But a big part of that was actually unfamiliarity. I am totally knowledgeable about the fact that, yes, they dominated the tournament scene for the last 2 weeks, but you got to remember, this is a brand new army that people have not changed their armies to play into yet. They also haven't adapted how to play into Victrix Honor Guard yet, so the results for the first few weeks are always going to be higher. Now, that being said, I do tend to agree with most people that they were probably a little bit too efficient, so they needed either a points increase or like a rules nerf. So the way I probably would have gone about it is I probably would have just taken away that, gotten rid of their 5 attacks and made it 4 attacks. But this way, they went up by 30 points each. It's actually pretty significant. I see a lot of other creators saying, oh, they needed to go up by 80 or 100 points. I think that's complete nonsense, and those guys are just completely wrong. That doesn't matter. I still love them. That seems ludicrous to me. But so here's the deal. The nerf for the Victrix was correct. Victrix now cost an additional 30 points each. So the 12-man list went up by 60 points. 18-man list went up by 90 points. That's a whole unit gone from an already elite army that's going to struggle to get more than 11 units on the battlefield, dropping them from 11 to 10 units. That's a big nerf, which really does make a huge difference in the way that this army can play. Now, personally, the way I think Ultramarines should have been approached is they should have maybe not even worried about the points so much and just gotten rid of the +1 to wound for Oath of Moment for Ultramarines, because at this point, they probably don't need that anymore, and I would have left everything else the same, but that's okay. Either way, Victrix Honor Guard have been nerfed, and I would agree with the internet that they should have been nerfed, so that was a good thing. This is going to be a pretty darn big impact, more impactful than what I hear other people saying, and I think it's a very fair change. And then when we look at Votann, Votann actually got several small points of buffs, which is a little bit interesting. I think it's going to be relevant, but I don't think it's going to be game-changingly relevant. But what was really, really interesting here was that none of these things were super, super, super over-nerfed, and I like that a lot. And that kind of goes in hand with the next part, which was we really had no wild overbuffs. And this was what really kind of surprised me about this Post-Dataslate. They didn't overbuff the bottom armies. No one is going to be in a completely new category of army. I know Demons got a new profile in the Lord of the Change and Kairos. They went to flat damage 3, which is good. And they also went up in points by a little bit, which is good. They should have. And then we also saw some big changes to the Host of Change, which is the 10,000 Suns detachment, where you can bring in Tzeentch demon allies, because now the Tzeentch ally demons are also going to be able to make use of and use the Cabal ritual points for the army rule for 1,000 Suns. And I think this is really, really necessary. Now, I see a lot of people, some people in my own Discord, who I just disagree with. I love them. I just disagree with them. And they are saying that this is going to make for a wildly overpowered army that's going to crush the meta. I don't see that at all. I definitely think it makes the army a little bit better, and I think it's going to make for some really interesting builds we can see, which is going to be really fun. But I don't think it's going to absolutely smash anything. I don't think it's going to. You'll see some tournament wins, I'm sure, but that's good. Armies should have some tournament wins. So in reality, the buffs are super interesting, and they're good, but they're not oppressive. The Tzeentch demon strategy is good, but it's not meta breaking. For once, GW didn't really panic. And they didn't overcorrect the wrong way. This data slate was a nerf slate, not the buff slate. And that is exactly what the game really needed. We needed a nerf slate, not really a buff slate. So some things that were a little bit interesting. We didn't see some of the changes that I really thought we were going to see. We did see like a 10-point nerf on Azure for the Dark Angels, which was, I thought, a little bit interesting. It's like, okay. The Blood Angels and stuff, we saw a 10-point buff because the Sanguinar went down a little bit. But when you looked at, say, Orcs, or when you looked at just a huge variety of armies, the points changes were very minimal, which makes me think that Games Workshop was actually really happy with how basically every army in the game was doing, except for the top. They thought the top was doing too freaking well. So what they did is they really focused on nerfing the top, not worrying about bringing up the bottom, because the bottom was already pretty good. They were just being held down by the top. I think that's awesome. This slate's not about lifting the bottom. This slate was about lowering the top. And so let's get into the last part, which this is why the game is now in its best freaking state ever. And I just think this has to be true. This is why I'm so excited. Top meta tiers, the top meta armies got toned down. The mid-tier armies stayed very strong. The new detachments are fun and they're competitive. There's no new S-tier monster that was created. We don't have to worry about that. And no faction got panic buffed into dominance. We are finally entering a meta where skill is always going to be the defining factor. Yeah, there will be some matchups where certain armies have advantages into others, but that will always exist in 40k, and it should. But matchups on average are looking fair. Faction balance is looking really tight, and the game just feels wide freaking open. This is the healthiest the game has felt to me in a very, very long time. Player skill is going to matter more than list building. Well, maybe not more than list building, but at least as much as list building. We're about to see new builds. We're going to see new ideas, and we're going to see actual experimentation again, not just chasing the obvious top list. So guys, tell me in the comments, what army are you most excited to revisit now that the data slate has dropped? And stick around, because I'm going to be covering a bunch of the stuff that's coming up with new tournament results. I am so pumped for this, and I hope you are too. Until next time, crump on. Bye-bye.